After stealing home court advantage in a huge Game 1 win, the Timberwolves followed that up with maybe the most impressive performance from any team this season. Without their defensive anchor, I know I expected a big game from Jokic and the Nuggets, and that couldn't be further from reality. The Wolves gave Kyle Anderson the start, but left Cat with the Jokic matchup, so on the first play the Nuggets set up inverted pick and roll to get Joker the switch. From there he works his way to the rim, and he probably should have tried to score but dumps it off to Gordon, and just one possession in, you could tell points weren't going to be easy to come by. Next time down, Jokic again has Kyle on him and posts up, to which Kyle uses his freakishly long arms to force a turnover. So instead of a Jokic isolation, they're going to go to their signature two-man game, and not only does Cat pick up the ball, Kyle aggressively helps from the weak side to take away the rim, which does lead to a miss, but with nobody to keep Gordon off the glass. Denver actually didn't look too bad in the start. You had Jokic taking advantage of a Gobert-less paint with a big body drive and finish, then next time he gets cross-matched with Conley, which typically would lead to easy points, but Cat sells out to the ball, so he instead ends up tossing an errant lob. The key was to keep Jokic guessing as much as possible. When he catches it in the post, you don't really know whether the Wolves are going to double or dig from the perimeter, and then as soon as Jamal frees up on a cut, you have both weak side defenders collapsing to protect the rim. KCP's wide open in the corner, but Jamal misses him and instead tries a tough finish. Minnesota showed to be comfortable doubling Joker more times than not and living with the results. On this one, Porter's able to get a great look from three that just rims out, so instead of using Jokic like a traditional big, the Nuggets countered by leaning into his point guard skills. That means more inverted pick and roll for him to get downhill, and on this one he actually rejects the action to attack the middle before kicking it back out to Gordon, who's gonna try his hand at a long range jumper. Gordon started this game on an absolute heater. Again, you have the double team on Jokic, while Cat picks up the cut, only for him to stop short and take a jumper. Then after a stop, they get out in transition, where he finds a ton of space on the perimeter for his 13th points of the first quarter. Things look a lot different in the half court though. The combination of Naz Reid and Towns all up in Joker's airspace makes him miss Gordon on a cut. Then when he makes a skip pass to the weak side corner, you have McDaniels and Edwards Xing out with perfection, so the Nuggets end up with no advantage and are forced to live with a tougher shot. While we're talking about Naz, his defense was absolutely incredible. Here, it's a handoff to Porter and he's gonna jump out in a hedge, then by the time it gets back to Jokic, he's already recovered. Once again, no advantage, and the end result is a shot clock violation. That's not to say that Denver had zero success. Like this time, the double comes and Jokic spins away from it to create a passing angle to Holiday in the weak side corner as he puts three on the board, but those were actually their last points of the first, as the Wolves collectively shut down everything over the last minute. When Jokic draws the double, he continues to find cutters, and this time it's Alexander Walker who meets an attacker at the rim. Then when Jokic says enough passing and tries to force the issue himself as a scorer, he gets called for an offensive foul. After 12 minutes, they'd recorded 20 points, which obviously isn't great, but they're only down 8, so this game is far from out of hand. With that said, it's time for the non-Jokic minutes, and if those first 12 were any indicator, we were in for a rough sight. When Jamal gets Naz Reid switched onto him, they clear out for him to play one-on-one, only Naz isn't a mismatch and he completely shuts down the attack. Then for good measure, they steal the inbound pass. Next time down, Reggie Jackson's gonna try getting downhill himself, and he too finds out the hard way that just because Gobert's out doesn't mean the pain is sweet, and that's if they can even get the ball past half court, because when Jamal tries to initiate the offense, he's being absolutely swarmed with full court pressure to the point he has to pick up his dribble from more than 30 feet out while two elite wing defenders trap him. Eventually, they're able to set up their offense after 19 seconds of shot clock, and the Wolves just switch the ball screen to not give up an advantage, the possession ending in the hands of Peyton Watson for an impossibly tough look from the corner. Basically, the entire squad was just taking turns getting clamped. Gordon tries to take Alexander Walker from the perimeter, and even if he gets by his hip, he's driving right into a helping Jaden McDaniels. So in more than 2.5 minutes with Jokic on the bench, they didn't score a single point, and this corner three from Towns put them up by 16, a hole that would prove impossible to climb out of, even for the defending champs. With Jokic on the floor, they set up their two-man game, and I want you to make a mental note of how this action is meant to get Jamal attacking the middle. More on that later because he's stepping back for a mid-range jumper that doesn't drop, while Jokic grabs a second chance opportunity only to be hounded by two 7-footers down low. After a fight for the loose ball, they eventually get it back with the clock winding down, so they once again go to a screen in the middle, and now Nas is just going to switch out to not let Jamal get any space from three. Next time down, it's the exact same thing, except instead of a switch, Nas is up in a hedge while Alexander Walker sits on Jamal's right hip, to which he finally attacks space on a drive for his first points of the half. About a minute later, he finds himself with Nas switched onto him for a third time, but instead of an isolation, he's gonna try to run the big man through a screen, which he has no problem doing as he uses his length to deny a three, only for the Nuggets to grab another second chance with Christian Braun cutting down the middle of the lane, but not for an easy bucket because here come three Minnesota wings to protect the rim, although Porter's able to scrape together an awkward bucket. What I'm getting at is the fact that everything is just so difficult. Even a Jokic post-up turns into war, as he not only has to avoid Conley's double, he also has to find a way to create a finishing angle against Cat. And right about this time, he started to get really aggressive whenever he touched the ball. Again, he's backing his way in, but this time Anderson steps up a little bit too high, so it's a lob to Gordon. Outside of Jokic forcing the issue, they couldn't create even the slightest advantage against this defense. You have multiple bodies in the paint, every shooter drawing an aggressive closeout and failing to create space. The only way to describe it would be a complete train wreck. When Gordon tries attacking, he's able to get the step on Anderson, only to get met by the explosive vertical leap of Edwards at the rim, and in the very rare event they actually do get a good look, like this corner three from Jackson, shots simply weren't falling. Jamal had to deal with constant pressure at all times, so he couldn't catch a rhythm, shooting 1 of 10 in the first half, while Jokic also couldn't really get much going. He tries a jump hook and Reed blocks it. On the second chance, it's Conley who reaches in for another block. Then on try number 3, he turns into a hook with the offhand, but to no avail. I've never seen the Nuggets offense just look completely out of sorts like this. The ball pressure forces a rush decision from Murray, and Nas takes away a shovel pass to Jokic. Then when they instead try handing it off to MPJ, he turns the corner and runs right into help at the nail for another turnover, and this one leads to some easy points going the other way to put the Wolves up by 28. On the very last play, Jokic draws a foul to at least get 2 more points on the board, but through 2 quarters, they've scored a total of 35 points for an offensive rating of 76.1. I don't think I need to explain how awful that is. Remember, I wanted you to make a note of how the two-man game was initiated going towards the middle. Well, at the beginning of the third, they instead used it to attack an open corner, and this is really important because it takes away all of that extra help. I'd expect this to be a big-time adjustment for them in Game 3, but for some reason on the very next possession, they go right back to the middle, which of course results in a turnover, and they did it again and again. Jamal can't even use the screen before having the ball poked out. Then when he regains possession, he still has space to continue his drive, but not for long because the entire defense is collapsing to the paint, to which Jokic grabs the board and gets blocked not once, but twice before getting called for a shot clock violation. One way they tried to counter was with Chicago action, meaning a second screen is set before the handoff, only they're still going towards the middle, and this time to avoid a turnover, Jamal picks up his dribble early before throwing a turnover anyways. Pretty much the only offense they're getting at this point is in semi-transition, and that's because they're able to attack before the defense is properly set. Then in the half court, whenever they try to run through Jokic, the Wolves continue to double. Against these coverages, the role players just have to shoot the ball better, or this will be a short series. Both Holiday and Gordon shot really well, but outside of those two, the Nuggets as a unit shot 2 of 20, or 10% from 3 on the night. And with just under 3 minutes to go, they finally go back to the open corner handoff, which once again finds success as Holiday draws a foul. At one point, Michael Porter had a chance to trim the deficit down to 19, but missed, and by the time the fourth rolled around, we're just marking minutes until the buzzer. Denver ended the game with 80 points, their lowest total of the entire season, and an offensive rating of 88.9, which is about as bad as it gets. And usually with a performance like this, there's some sort of silver lining or something that went well, but to say this was a disaster would be an understatement. Awful three-point shooting, very little points in the paint or on fast breaks, 16 turnovers, Jokic shooting 5 of 13 from the field, while Jamal was an even worse 3 of 18. I mean, this was one of the best team defensive performances I've ever seen. As far as adjustments go, like I said, more open corner two-man game to give Jamal space, but really it's going to take collectively better individual performances across the board. Guys have to make better decisions, have to knock down shots, because if they can defend like this without Gobert, I can only imagine what they have in store for Game 3 with the 4-time Defensive Player of the Year back in the lineup. If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to drop a like, subscribe, and turn my post notifications on to be first on more content. If you're interested in my more in-depth research, make sure to check out my website and social media profiles. You can find those links in the description. Feel free to let me know down in the comments what you thought of this game. As always, I hope you all have a great day, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.